Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and in this special edition of the broadcast, let's take a quick look as to what is making headlines around the world. Now, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has declared a new doctrine to crush terror and end Pakistan's nuclear blackmail. In his first address to the nation after Operation Sindoor, the Indian Prime Minister said that talks with Pakistan will only happen on the issue of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and terrorism. He declared that the strikes on terror hubs in Pakistan were not a one-time response, but a new national policy against terror. India will brief the foreign defence attaches on Operation Sindoor, while the Foreign Secretary will also brief the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs next week on the situation with Pakistan.
By Pakistan.
Following Operation Sindoor, schools in most areas of Jammu and Kashmir have now reopened, except for some border towns where caution is being exercised. The Indian Army has confirmed that the situation remains calm and is under full control, with no enemy drones being spotted since last night. An Israeli strike hit the Nasser hospital in Khan Younis, southern Gaza, early on Tuesday, killing at least 3 people and injuring about 10 others, according to the hospital officials. The Israeli military claims that the strike targeted Hamas militants operating from within a command and a control center at the hospital, describing it as a precise operation against significant Hamas terrorists who were planning and executing attacks against the Israeli civilians and troops. The American President Donald Trump has expressed interest in joining potential peace talks between Ukraine and Russia in Türkiye this week. Trump has mentioned that he's thinking about flying to Türkiye, where Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, although the Kremlin has remained pretty silent on Putin's attendance. And this comes as Putin's proposed the direct meeting as a counter-offer to a 30-day ceasefire put forth by Kiev and its European allies over the weekend, which Ukraine has accused Russia of completely ignoring on Monday. The United Nations Aviation Agency has found Russia responsible for the downing of a Malaysian airline jetliner over Ukraine in 2014, leading to the deaths of 298 people. The International Civil Aviation Organization, based in Montreal, has said that the claims brought by Australia and the Netherlands over the shooting down of the flight MH17 the 17th of July of that year were well-founded in fact and in law. The ICAO said that this was the first time in history that its council has made a determination on the merits of a dispute between member states. The plane, remember, was hit by a Russian-made Buk surface-to-air missile. The Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was sworn in by the Australian Governor-General Sam Mostian after the Labor Party won a second term in power at the federal election. Now, Anthony Albanese's cabinet, outer ministry and assistant ministers were officially sworn in for their roles at the Government House in Canberra. Susan Ley has been elected as the new leader of Australia's Conservative Liberal Party, becoming the first woman to hold the position in its 80-year-long history. Now, Susan Ley replaces Peter Dutton following the party's decisive loss in the 3rd of May national elections. A former stock mustering pilot who has spent more than 20 years in national politics, she is being seen as a more moderate voice within the right-leaning party. Emphasizing the need for change, Susan Ley stated that the Liberal Party must respect modern Australia. The violent clashes between rival armed groups rocked the Libyan capital of Tripoli on Monday night, with reports of heavy arms fire and explosions in several areas. The fighting prompted the authorities to urge the residents to stay indoors for their own safety. And according to local media, Abdul Ghani al-Kikli, the leader of an influential armed group based in South Tripoli, was killed in the clashes. Now, the violence is the latest in long-standing struggle for power and territory amongst various armed factions in Libya. The clashes reportedly broke out in the southern suburbs between armed groups from Tripoli and rivals from port city of Misrata. The UK police have launched an investigation into a fire that caused damage outside of the previous family home of British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in the Kentish town, North London. Now, Starmer still owns the property, but he moved into the Prime Minister's official residence in Downing Street after his Labour Party's election victory last year. The incident occurred at about 1:35 a.m. on Monday, with the London Fire Brigade responding to reports of a fire at a residential address. And according to the Metropolitan Police, the officers attended the scene and found damage to the property's entrance, while no one was hurt. The media reports say that counter-terrorism unit is leading the probe into the suspected firebomb attack. The Director General of World Trade Organization, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, met with Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba in Tokyo, discussing the current challenges facing global trade. She emphasized that while trade is experiencing difficult times, there are also opportunities for growth and cooperation. The meeting comes as the US and China have agreed to roll back most of the tariffs imposed on each other, declaring a 90-day truce in their trade war. Now, Okonjo-Iweala highlighted the importance of using the current crisis as an opportunity to solve trade challenges and to capitalize on new trends. The Chinese President Xi Jinping addressed the China-CELAC Forum in Beijing, emphasizing China's commitment to strengthening ties with Latin America and the Caribbean. The Jinping, in fact, pledged $9.2 billion in terms of credit for development in the region, while warning of a bloc confrontation taking a dig at the United States. He said that bullying and hegemony will only lead to isolation. Now, Xi's remarks have come a day after the United States and China announced a deal to drastically reduce tit-for-tat tariffs for a period of 90 days. Taiwan recently test-fired its domestically developed Sky Sword 2 missile designed to enhance the island's defense capabilities against potential Chinese attacks. The missile features advanced guided systems including inertial navigation and active radar homing, allowing it to engage multiple targets effectively. Ecuador has deployed about 1,500 troops to the Amazonian region to combat leftist guerrillas blamed for a recent ambush that killed about 11 soldiers. The Ministry of Defense has announced the deployment of social media, stating that the operation aims to neutralize and to eliminate those responsible for the attack. Now, the operation involves special forces, intelligence and counter-terrorism forces. Ecuadorian Army Commander General Henry Delgado said that the operation aimed to neutralize and to eliminate those who've caused the situation, and this morning at the national level. The guerrillas allegedly used explosives, grenades and firearms in the attack, and the incident has prompted 3 days of national mourning in Ecuador. Now, hundreds of people took part in a march in Jamundi, southwestern Colombia, to demand the release of 11-year-old boy who had been held hostage by the guerrillas for nearly about 10 days. The boy was abducted by a dissident branch of the FARC known as Jamie Martinez, who initially targeted his stepfather. The authorities, along with the representatives from the United Nations and the Red Cross, have been trying to negotiate with the kidnappers to secure Lian's release. And according to the negotiators, the minor is reportedly in good health and his kidnappers are willing to release him. The French President Emmanuel Macron's office has issued a clarification after the French leader was accused of hiding an alleged packet of drugs during a meeting with his British and German counterparts. In a statement on social media platform X, Macron's office called the allegations fake news aimed at undermining European unity. The statement called the allegations a disinformation campaign to make a simple tissue look like a packet of drugs. The Ukraine Center for Countering Disinformation called the allegations a Russian propaganda trick aimed at discrediting the visit of Western leaders to Kiev. The sanctuary of Fatima in Portugal played host to thousands of pilgrims on Monday as they gathered to pray for the newly appointed Pope Leo XIV and for global peace. According to church officials, approximately 270,000 pilgrims from around the world, including Portugal, Spain, Poland, the United States, Mauritius and Taiwan, flocked to this revered Catholic shrine. In India's Punjab state, at least about 14 people have died and 6 others have been hospitalized after allegedly consuming spurious liquor in the city of Amritsar. And according to the Amritsar police, 2 FIRs have been registered under stringent sessions and 4 local suppliers, including the main supplier, have been arrested. The police is going door to door to identify people who have consumed the spurious liquor. Raids have also underway and manufacturers of the spurious liquor are expected to be rounded up pretty soon. The dollar held strong gains as investors cheered a tariff deal between the United States and China to tap the brakes on a trade war between the world's 2 largest economies that has fed fears of a global recession. Washington and Beijing announced an agreement to slash the massive tariffs that they had imposed on each other for a period of 90 days, sparking a relief rally across markets that has swept up global stocks and has sent the dollar surging. Across currencies, the yen and the euro were amongst the largest losers against a resurgent dollar overnight. The de-escalation of the US-China trade tensions has in turn led the traders to pare back their bets of Federal Reserve rate cuts on the view that policymakers would make less pressure to ease monetary policy to support growth. The oil prices eased from a 2-week high and weighed down by concerns about rising supplies despite earlier optimism over the pause in the US-China trade war after both countries temporarily cut off tariffs. The Brent crude futures dropped by 0.3% to trade above $64 per barrel, while the US oil traded about $61. Both benchmarks, in fact, closed about 1.5% higher on Monday at their steepest settlements since April 28. Now, the gains have come during a turbulent time for global oil markets. The markets are also eyeing the rising supplies as a key driver for oil price as the oil price continues to weaken. The benchmark equity indices, Sensex and Nifty, traded lower in the early trade today. This after logging their best day in more than 4 years following a ceasefire agreement with Pakistan over the weekend. The BSE Sensex was trading about 1.23% lower at 81,416, while the Nifty 50 was down 259 points at around 10:30 a.m. Global analysts say that a better than expected earnings season, easing trade risks and favorable macros are supporting the rally in Indian stocks. The Bank of Japan expects wages and prices to keep rising even as the uncertainty over US tariff policy weighs on the economy, signaling the bank's resolve to maintain its rate hike stance. While US tariffs are likely to hurt Japan's economic growth, the Bank of Japan will continue to raise interest rates if the economy and prices were to improve after a period of stagnation. The Bank of Japan will scrutinize the economic fallout from the United States trade policy without preconceptions, as uncertainty surrounding the outlook was extremely high. The remarks, in fact, underscore the challenge that the Bank of Japan policymakers face in balancing headwinds to growth from President Donald Trump's tariff policy and domestic inflationary pressures from a tight job market and the rising raw material costs.